They said the Rafale couldn't be touched, that it flew higher, saw farther, hit faster, a ghost with fangs wrapped in French precision and Indian pride. And for a while, that was true. In the first 72 hours of the conflict, Rafales had racked up clean kills, striking Pakistani radar sites, knocking out an early warning drone, even forcing a pair of older Falcons to turn back before they'd even crossed the LOC. The message from New Delhi was clear. This wasn't 2019 anymore. Pakistan could bring its best. It wouldn't matter. The Rafale ruled the sky now. What India didn't know was that Pakistan hadn't brought its best. Not yet. May 14th, 2025, 0600 hours. Rajouri sector. A dusty sun crept over the horizon, but the sky was already alive. Somewhere up there, 2 Indian Rafales were slicing through the morning cold at 35,000 feet. Reconnaissance plus air dominance sweep. Standard stuff. Routine. They didn't expect trouble. Pakistani jets had been quiet since yesterday's cross-LOC artillery duel. The Rafale pilots were even joking across encrypted comms about being home by chai time. But at Minhas Air Base, a different kind of morning was unfolding. In a hangar that still smelled faintly of jet fuel and silence, Squadron Leader Kamran Masih ran one hand down the spine of his J-10C. Not in ceremony. In habit. His gloves were still half on. The crew chief was checking final seals. The engines purred faintly, waiting. Kamran didn't smile. He didn't scowl. He just breathed. Steady, focused. Behind him, ground control's voice cut in. "You're green. Code Tango 6. Eastern Corridor. No backup." He nodded once and climbed in. The J-10C wasn't designed to win beauty contests. It didn't have the exotic curves of the Rafale or the whispers of stealth that wrapped around the F-35. It was sharp, fast, angular, and often underestimated. Kamran liked it that way. He called her IR, the trickster. Because when flown right, she didn't just fight. She disappeared, confused, circled back, and killed. By the time his wheels left the tarmac, the Rafales were already deep into contested airspace. Their sensors hadn't picked him up, yet. But satellite intel said they'd be turning west soon, which meant Kamran had about 7 minutes to climb, engage, or vanish. He went straight up. In a New Delhi command bunker, an air vice marshal leaned back in his chair and muttered, "Let's see if they even show up." A junior officer laughed. "They won't. Not after yesterday." Back in the sky, Kamran broke through cloud cover at 30,000 feet and throttled back. Not to hide, but to listen. His radar was active but quiet. A soft hum, like water waiting to boil. He swept left, then right, arcs across the eastern corridor. He didn't rush. He let the Rafales come to him. They were faster, better equipped, but speed made noise, and in that moment, the J-10C was a blade in fog. At 33,000 feet, his HUD blinked twice. 2 targets. Southeast vector. Altitude match. Kamran didn't flinch. He pulled into a shallow climb, slipped into the sun's halo, and shut everything else off. Radar, comms, even his jammer. He became a shadow. Back at the Rawalpindi Control Center, the silence was deliberate. No one wanted to say it aloud, that this might be suicide. One J-10C, no wingman, no escort, going up against twin Rafales in Indian-controlled airspace? Even the most optimistic analysts had tagged this flight high risk, low probability. But the air chief had said one thing before the sortie. Let the French tech try. Let the skies decide. Kamran spotted them first, just a glint at the edge of the morning. The Rafales were flying loose formation, scanning forward. No flares, no erratic moves. They weren't expecting anyone at their six. That's when the first Rafale began to slow, to pivot back toward Indian airspace. Kamran smiled beneath the mask. Too late. The first kill changed everything. Where Kamran strikes like a ghost. He didn't fire right away. Kamran drifted behind the Rafales like a shadow riding dawn, letting their infrared signatures pulse in his scope, waiting for the perfect line. The J-10C's targeting system offered a firing solution at 19 kilometers, but he waited. 15. 12. 8. He wanted this close. He wanted them to see what hit them. Inside the lead Rafale, Squadron Leader Arjun Dev had just requested a systems sync with wingmate Vikram's bird when his RWR screamed, "Missile lock, where?" But it was already too late. Kamran pressed the trigger, PL-15 away. The missile tore forward with a shockless burn, invisible in infrared for the first 2 seconds, then igniting like lightning aimed at steel. The Rafale never had a chance. It flared left, too late, trying to break lock. It didn't work. The detonation lit the sky like a second sunrise. From the ground, Indian radar stations blinked red. From orbit, a NATO ISR satellite logged the spike. From across the LOC, a Pakistani air controller whispered, "Splash 1." But up in the sky, Kamran didn't celebrate. He inverted hard, broke off the vector, and vanished into low cloud like a ghost. The second Rafale, now alone, hit its afterburners and dove for escape altitude. But Kamran wasn't running. He was already climbing again. New Delhi HQ. Red lights. Urgent voices. "Sir, we've lost one Rafale." "Repeat?" "Telemetry blackout. Confirmed heat signature collapse at 0702. "Who engaged?" We don't know yet. Possibly J-10C. In the air, the second Indian pilot, Vikram, was pushing the Rafale into a wide loop, scanning furiously. He still hadn't acquired visual on the attacker. It wasn't possible. How could a Chinese-origin jet, a so-called copy, get this close undetected? But this wasn't Beijing's jet. This was Kamran's jet. The J-10C roared above him, descending in a tight spiral with the sun at its back, a hunter dropping from the heavens. Kamran had already predicted the escape arc, already plotted the Rafale's speed bleed. He cut in low, armed the second missile, short range this time, and held the trigger until he could almost read the markings on the Rafale's tail. Fox 2. The missile streaked upward like a spear from below. The Rafale broke right. Too hard, too sharp. It stalled. The missile struck high near the intake. The Rafale spun, fire trailing, then disappeared in cloud. 2 kills. 2 confirmed. And the sky, for a moment, was silent. At Pakistan Air Command, applause broke out. Not wild, not loud, but stunned. A junior officer stood with his mouth half open. Did he just... The general nodded. He did. Indian airwaves erupted in panic. The remaining strike groups were ordered to fall back to Pathankot. Search and rescue was scrambled. Media blackout ordered. Internally, the word spread fast. 2 Rafales, lost, in under 6 minutes. But Kamran wasn't returning. He could have. He should have. But he didn't. There was still something on radar. Another Rafale. High altitude, fast, coming in from the east. A third one. Likely backup. Maybe vengeance. Kamran rolled his neck once. "Ayar," he whispered to his jet. "Let's finish this." He climbed again. NATO observers watching from satellite feeds couldn't believe it. One Pakistani J-10C was now turning into 3 Rafales, and winning. Not defending. Dominating. At Langley, a U.S. analyst muttered, "That's not just a lucky pilot. That's someone rewriting doctrine." Back in the sky, the 3rd Rafale pilot, Flight Lieutenant Ankit Sharma, was already locking systems. He had no idea what had just happened, only that both his squadron mates were down and a hostile was active. He made one mistake. He assumed the J-10C was fleeing. Kamran dove, but not away, toward the sun glare. He cut engine for half a second, glided, disappeared, then popped back on the Rafale's left at a blind angle. One burst, gun only, no missile, just steel speed and skill. The cannon lit up. The Rafale sparked. And just like that, the 3rd one tumbled. 3 kills, no wingman, no support, no radar assist. Just Kamran Masih, the trickster, and the sky that finally whispered his name. Now the hunter was being hunted. India calls in retaliation. But Kamran's not done. The sky should have been his escape. 3 Rafales downed. No damage taken. He'd done what no one believed possible. But there was no celebration, no easy landing, because the moment Kamran turned south for home, the warning lights flared red. Multiple locks. He didn't swear. He didn't flinch. He just clicked back to manual radar scan. 2 new blips. High speed. High altitude. More Rafales? No. These signatures were faster. Meaner. Mirage escorts. Possibly Su-30 support. They weren't coming for recon. They were coming for blood. At Pakistan's Air Command, the room went cold. "He's being hunted." The ground controller leaned in toward the mic. "Trickster 1, you are clear to disengage. Abort. Repeat. Abort." But Kamran didn't reply. He didn't even touch the comms. Up there, alone and breathing in recycled oxygen, Kamran saw the trap unfolding. The Indian Air Force hadn't just scrambled retaliation. They'd launched a net. The radar pings weren't constant. They pulsed, like sonar. Sweeping. It meant one thing. AI-assisted tracking. And it meant one more thing. They still didn't know exactly where he was. The J-10C dove low again, riding the curves of the valley near the Pir Panjal range. Kamran killed the afterburner, dropped to subsonic speed, and let the landscape become his shield. The AI didn't like valleys. It liked altitude, predictability. Kamran offered it neither. At the Indian Forward Air Command, a young radar tech said, "Sir, target has disappeared again." The officer snapped, "It can't disappear. Nothing just vanishes." But it had. Because the man behind the stick wasn't flying by protocol. He was flying by intuition. Miles out, the Mirages split formation. They were using a pincer pattern, one to flush, one to finish. Kamran knew it. He'd studied it, trained against it on paper. He also knew the 1-second window that exists, TED between the lead Mirage acquiring visual and the trail Mirage getting tone lock. That was all he needed. He let the lead Mirage spot him, let it bank toward him, let it think it had him. And just as the second jet accelerated to complete the box, Kamran cut throttle, pulled vertical, and executed a high G twistback that no manual said the J-10C could survive at that low an altitude. His bones screamed. The cockpit rattled. But the trickster flipped through the Mirage pair like a coin through fingers. He came out behind them. In an Indian AWACS center, the technician monitoring the data stream gasped. "He's behind them now." "What? That's not possible. We're losing one. We're losing..." Kamran didn't fire. He didn't need to. Just let the radar tone hum. Just let the Indian pilot hear it. And in that split second, the hunter became the hunted. The Mirage broke formation and dove hard, too hard. It slammed turbulence, lost lift, and dipped below radar. Eject warning triggered. Another one down. The second Mirage pilot turned tail. But Kamran didn't chase. He had one lock left. And someone bigger had just entered the game. New Delhi ordered an Su-30, a flanker, into the zone. Bigger radar, heavier payload, long-range infrared. A heavyweight. It wasn't coming to duel, it was coming to delete. Back at Minhas, a senior air officer leaned forward. If he engages, we lose him. But no one reached for the recall button. They knew. Kamran had already made his choice. The Su-30 painted him from 40 miles out. It didn't try to hide. It came bold, direct, closing fast. Kamran didn't run. Instead, he rose, like a blade in reverse. He shut everything down. Hard kill mode. No radar, no signature. He disappeared again. At 35,000 feet, the Su-30 leveled out, waiting for a missile lock. It never came. Instead, the Pakistani jet reappeared above it, diving full throttle with nose down and cannon primed. No radar lock, no time for countermeasures. Just the shimmer of a sleek triangle slicing down through thin blue air. The Su-30 tried to brake. Kamran tilted into a controlled stall, rolled, and raked his cannon across the flanker's fuselage. No detonation, just spark and steel, and in 3 seconds, the Su-30 peeled off, smoking. Not destroyed, but crippled. Kamran didn't need a kill. He needed a message. The Pakistani pilot pulled up, stabilized, and sent just 2 beeps into open comms. Not words, just silence. And then, he vanished into cloud. And then the sky went silent, where the world reacts, and Kamran leaves the battlefield with only one sentence. The Su-30 limped back toward Indian airspace, streaming smoke into a sky that suddenly felt very empty. Kamran didn't pursue. He just leveled off, throttled back, and let the quiet wrap around him like an old friend. No more locks, no more radar pulses, no more threats, just the wind and the sky. His sky now. At Pakistan Air Command, no one spoke. The radar tech blinked. Sir, he's alive. All targets disengaged. The room erupted, not in shouts, in disbelief. Then the claps came, and a voice, dry but proud, said, "That's not just survival, that's air superiority." In New Delhi, the silence was heavier. A report was placed on the defense minister's desk with 6 words handwritten at the bottom. All 3 Rafales, confirmed losses. A second note was attached. Engaged by 1 J-10C, unknown pilot, unknown tactics. No one said it out loud, but they all knew what it meant. The narrative had cracked. Internationally, the shockwaves traveled fast. French defense analysts called for a full review of the Rafale's survivability matrix. Indian social feeds quietly scrubbed early claims of air dominance. And in a Pentagon briefing room, one American general leaned back in his chair and muttered, "That's the second time this year someone underestimated that bird." But none of that mattered to Kamran. He didn't log into social media, didn't wait for a medal, didn't even request a debrief. He just landed. Wheels kissed concrete, engines cooled, and for the first time in hours, Kamran Masih stepped out of the cockpit, face calm, posture silent. His crew ran toward him. One offered water. Another tried to speak. He raised a hand. No need. Then handed off his helmet, walked to the edge of the tarmac, and stared up. A young mechanic followed, hesitant. "Sir, was it true? 3 Rafales? Alone?" Kamran didn't answer immediately. He just watched the sky for a long moment, then turned and said, "They forgot one thing." The kid blinked. "Sir?" Kamran smiled, the faintest curve of his lips. Stealth can't outfly instinct. That night, the base was quiet. No briefings, no announcements. But everyone knew. They spoke in whispers, in hangars, in mess halls, about how a single jet, written off as second-rate, had danced through the teeth of a war zone and left no questions behind. The French wouldn't admit it. The Indians wouldn't accept it. But the sky had already decided. And far from the spotlight, inside a dark room where top brass planned their next steps, one commander drew a red circle on the map. "Next time we scramble Rafales," another voice interrupted, "we won't send them alone." Weeks later, when NATO analysts compiled a classified air engagement dossier labeled Rajouri Incident, one section remained flagged: unknown pilot tactics, not replicable by simulation. At the bottom, in permanent marker, someone had written, "We've entered the age of human over machine." But for Kamran Masih, there were no age shifts, no slogans, just skies and silence. He returned to his squadron the next morning, unnoticed. No cameras, no flags. Someone had taped a note to his locker, just 5 words. The trickster was here. He didn't remove it, because from that day forward, one truth remained unshakable. When future cadets asked why the J-10C was feared, why Indian Rafale squadrons never flew alone again near Rajouri, why NATO quietly updated their threat matrix for South Asia, the answer was simple: because one man in one jet flew like the sky owed him nothing and made legends blink. If that gave you chills, welcome to TRC Stories, where underdogs rewrite the legend. Subscribe. Stick around. We're just getting started.